Four bodyguards in black suits walked into Miller's diner at 9:47 on a Tuesday morning. Every conversation stopped. Every fork froze midair. The men moved like they'd done this 1,000 times before, scanning the room with eyes that had seen things most people only watched in movies. Behind them came two lawyers in pressed gray, carrying briefcases that probably cost more than Marcus Cole made in 6 months. The woman in front had silver hair pulled tight and the kind of face that had stared down boardrooms full of men twice her size. She looked at the counter where Sharon stood frozen, coffee pot still raised. Her voice cut through the silence like a knife through butter. "I'm looking for Marcus Cole. Does he work here?" Sharon couldn't speak. She just pointed toward the kitchen where Marcus had stopped mid-flip on a pancake. Spatula suspended in air, heart suddenly hammering against his ribs like it wanted out. The woman's heels clicked across the tile floor. 20 feet. 15. 10. She stopped 3 feet from where he stood behind the line, and something in her eyes made Marcus think of the moment right before a car crash, when time stretches, and you know everything's about to change, but you can't do a damn thing to stop it. "Marcus Cole?" He managed a nod. "My name is Margaret Calloway. I'm an attorney representing the estate of Catherine Elizabeth Whitmore." The pancake hit the floor. 2 months earlier, Marcus's alarm screamed at 5 in the morning like it did every day, dragging him out of dreams he could never remember. The apartment was dark and cold. The thermostat read 62 degrees because anything higher meant choosing between heat and groceries, and Tyler needed to eat more than Marcus needed to be comfortable. He rolled out of the sagging mattress, and his feet hit linoleum that had been installed sometime during the Carter administration. The bedroom door stuck when he pushed it, same as always, and he had to put his shoulder into it to get it open. In the main room that served as living room and dining room and kitchen all at once, Marcus counted the bills on the table. $6.33. Not enough for Tyler's field trip on Friday. Not enough to fix the stove that only 2 burners worked on. Not enough for the new shoes Tyler needed because 7-year-olds grew like weeds and wore through soles faster than Marcus could afford to replace them. He thought about his father then, like he always did when the money ran out before the month did. Diego Cole, who'd worked landscaping until the drinking got bad and his hands shook too much to hold the mower straight. Who'd come home with whiskey on his breath and rage in his eyes and made Marcus's mother flinch every time a door closed too hard. Who died when Marcus was 16, and Marcus had stood at the funeral thinking he'd never be that man. Never be the father who made his kid afraid. But standing here at 5 in the morning, counting change that wouldn't be enough, Marcus wondered if there were different ways to fail a child. Diego had failed with his fists. Marcus was failing with his empty wallet. Tyler's door was covered in drawings of dinosaurs. Marcus pushed it open and found his son curled under a blanket that had been washed so many times the colors had faded to ghosts of what they used to be. The kid's face was peaceful in sleep, and Marcus felt his chest tighten the way it always did when he looked at Tyler. 7 years old and already too smart, too observant, too aware that they didn't have what other families had. Marcus touched his shoulder gently. "Rise and shine, champ." Tyler's eyes opened, and he smiled up at Marcus like he was the best thing in the world, instead of a 34-year-old line cook who could barely keep the lights on. Breakfast was oatmeal with banana slices because it was cheap and healthy, and Marcus had learned a long time ago that caring for your kid meant making the best of what you had. Tyler ate without complaining, even though Marcus knew the kid probably wanted the sugary cereal his classmates brought for lunch. On the refrigerator, held up by a magnet shaped like the Liberty Bell, was the field trip permission slip. $25 due Friday. Marcus had until then to figure out where that money was coming from. "Dad?" Tyler looked up from his bowl. "Can Josh come over after school?" Marcus felt the familiar burn of shame in his gut. The apartment was 400 square feet of cramped, with furniture Marcus had gotten from the curb on trash day, and walls so thin you could hear the neighbors arguing about who forgot to buy milk. "Not this week, buddy." "Oh." Tyler went back to his oatmeal, and the fact that he didn't push it made Marcus feel worse. Most 7-year-olds would whine. Tyler had learned not to ask for things they couldn't afford. The bus to work took Marcus through Center City, Philadelphia, past glass towers that caught the early morning light and threw it back like they were too good to let it in. He stared out the window at the Whitmore Pharmaceuticals building. 40 stories of steel and money, and felt the old resentment curl up in his chest like smoke. The people in that building made in an hour what Marcus made in a month. They drove cars that cost more than he'd earn in 5 years. They lived in worlds so far above his that they might as well have been on different planets. Fuck them, Marcus muttered under his breath, then felt immediately guilty because that kind of bitterness was poison. It's what had turned his father mean. But standing on a bus that smelled like old coffee and cheaper perfume, watching towers full of people who'd never worried about $25 in their entire lives, it was hard not to feel like the world was rigged. Miller's Diner sat on the corner of Frankfurt and Girard in Fishtown, a neighborhood that used to be all working-class families and union halls, but was slowly turning into artisan coffee shops and yoga studios that charged $20 a class. The diner was a holdout from the old days, vinyl booths patched with duct tape and a floor that had been checkered black and white when Nixon was president. It smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee, and Marcus loved it the way you love things that don't pretend to be something they're not. He came through the back door at 5:45 and found Ray Espinoza already at the prep station, hands moving with the efficiency of a man who'd been doing this for 20 years. Ray was 45 but looked older, the kind of tired that came from working 2 jobs to keep 3 kids fed. He looked up when Marcus walked in. "Morning, brother." "Morning." They didn't need more words than that. That was the thing about real friendship between men. You didn't have to fill every silence with noise. You just worked side by side and the understanding was there underneath everything, solid as the foundation of a house. Marcus tied on his apron and moved to his station. The kitchen came alive under his hands. This was the place he felt most himself, the place where everything made sense in a way the rest of his life didn't. He prepped for the breakfast rush, eggs cracked with one hand into a bowl, pancake batter mixed to the exact consistency where it would pour smooth but cook fluffy, home fries cubed and seasoned. The secret to good home fries was duck fat and roasted garlic with just a pinch of smoked paprika. Sharon always did hers at 400 degrees, which was why they came out burnt on the outside and raw in the middle. You had to go low and slow, let the sugars caramelize proper. Marcus could taste things other people couldn't. It was the one gift genetics had given him. He could tell you what was missing in a sauce just by smell. He could tell you if the bacon was going to be crispy or chewy by the sound it made in the pan. He could have been something great if life had given him the chance. Instead, he was here, cooking eggs and pancakes for $7.50 an hour plus tips. At 6:30, Mr. Chen came through the door like he had every morning for the past 40 years. 82 years old, spine bent from decades of work Marcus had never asked about. Landscaping maybe, or construction. He wore the same navy pea coat he'd worn since Marcus started 2 years ago, frayed at the cuffs but clean, always clean. He sat at his usual spot at the counter and waited. Marcus poured coffee and put it in front of him without asking. "Morning, son. Can I get the usual?" Marcus already had the eggs going. 2 over easy, rye toast, bacon cooked crispy, coffee black. He plated it 5 minutes later and set it down. Mr. Chen ate slowly, savoring each bite like it might be his last. And when he was done, he left a $5 tip on an $8 meal. Marcus tried to give it back. "Mr. Chen, this is too much." The old man's hand closed over Marcus's, paper dry and surprisingly strong. "You remember I like my bacon crispy. Most people don't remember. That's worth something." After he left, Marcus stood there with the $5 in his hand and thought about how much simpler the world would be if everyone understood that being seen mattered more than most things people chase their whole lives. Sharon came in at 7, already complaining about traffic and her ex-husband and the price of cigarettes. She was 52 and looked 60, with bleached hair that had been fried by too many years of chemicals and a voice like gravel from too many Marlboro Reds. She wasn't a bad person. She was just tired of caring about things that didn't matter to her, and she'd decided somewhere along the way that other people's problems fell into that category. She poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter next to Ray. "You splitting tips with him again?" She jerked her chin toward Marcus. "Yeah. You know servers are supposed to keep their own tips." "Ray's got 3 kids," Marcus said from the grill. "So, you got 1. Math says you need your money more than he does." Marcus flipped a pancake without looking at her. "Kindness isn't math. You can't calculate caring about people. Sharon made a noise that might have been a laugh or might have been disgust and walked away to start her tables. Ray caught Marcus's eye and nodded once. Understanding passed between them without words. Some people got it, some people didn't. You couldn't force someone to understand that taking care of each other was the only thing that separated humans from animals. At 7:30, the door chimed and a woman walked in. The diner wasn't empty. The breakfast crowd was starting to filter in, construction workers and nurses coming off night shift and elderly regulars who'd been coming here since before Marcus was born. But something about this woman made everyone's head turn. She moved like a ghost, like she was trying to take up as little space as possible. Her jacket was faded black with frayed cuffs and the kind of wear that came from being slept in. Her jeans had holes that weren't fashionable, just worn through. Her hair hung tangled around a face that might have been pretty if it wasn't so drawn, so tired, so haunted. But her eyes. Even from across the room, Marcus noticed her eyes. They were clear and sharp and intelligent in a way that didn't match the rest of her. They swept the diner in one quick assessment, cataloging exits and people and threats the way someone who'd lived rough learned to do. She walked to the back corner booth, the one by the window that looked out onto the alley. The one nobody wanted because it was too isolated, too far from the warmth of the crowd. She sat down and picked up a menu with hands that trembled just slightly. Every person in the diner looked at her, then looked away fast like she might be contagious. The construction workers whispered something Marcus couldn't hear, and one of them laughed. The nurses moved their purses closer. An elderly woman actually stood up and moved to a different table. Sharon appeared at Marcus's elbow, close enough that he could smell the cigarettes on her breath. Great, the drifter's back. Back? She was here 3 times last week. Orders coffee, nurses it for 2 hours, never tips. She's bad for business. From the dish pit, Daryl called out loud enough for everyone to hear. Someone should call the cops. She probably smells. Marcus felt anger flare hot in his chest. The woman hadn't done anything except exist in a space where people decided she didn't belong. She was sitting quietly, studying a menu like she was trying to decode ancient hieroglyphics, bothering absolutely no one. But Daryl was 28 and had never known what it was like to have people look at you like you were garbage. So he thought it was fine to suggest calling the police on someone whose only crime was being poor. Marcus's voice came out harder than he meant it to. She's not bothering anyone. She's bothering me, Sharon said. Look, table 4 just moved. She's driving away customers. Then table 4 are assholes. Sharon's eyebrows went up. Marcus almost never swore at work, never raised his voice, never let the anger his father had passed down like a genetic curse show through. But something about this woman sitting alone in the corner, being treated like she wasn't human, hit him wrong. He grabbed the coffee pot and walked over before he could think better of it. Up close, he could see more details. The jacket had a designer label inside the collar, barely visible but there. The jeans were worn through, but the stitching was too good to be cheap. Her hands trembled when she reached for the menu, but her nails were clean, no dirt underneath. Everything about her was slightly off, like a picture that was just wrong enough to notice but not wrong enough to explain. And when she looked up at him, those eyes hit him like a physical force. Coffee? How much? $2.50, free refills. She looked down at her hands like she was doing calculations in her head. Just coffee then. Marcus poured. The cup rattled slightly when she reached for it, and he waited to see if she'd spill it, but she managed to get both hands wrapped around it and pull it close. She held it like it was precious, like it was the only warm thing she'd have all day. You want cream and sugar? She nodded. Marcus brought them, and she added both with the kind of care people used when everything mattered because nothing was guaranteed. You eaten today? Her eyes came up sharp, defensive. I'm fine. That's not what I asked. Silence stretched between them. She stared at him like she was trying to figure out what he wanted, what the catch was, what he'd expect in return. Toast is $1.50. I can bring you some. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a handful of change, quarters and dimes and nickels that she counted out on the table with fingers that shook. $2.87 total, not enough for coffee and toast both. Just coffee. Marcus nodded and walked back to the counter. Ray was watching him with knowing eyes. You gonna do it? Do what? Bring her food anyway. Marcus stared at the grill, at the eggs and bacon and pancakes he'd cooked 1,000 times. I don't know. I know you. You're already decided. I can't afford to feed every person who walks in here broke. But you're going to. Ray said it without judgment, just observation. He knew Marcus the way you knew someone after working side by side for 2 years, through rushes and disasters, in quiet moments when the truth came out because there was nothing else to fill the silence. Marcus thought about his father, about the kind of man who looked at someone in need and walked away, about the kind of man who put his own comfort above someone else's survival. Diego Cole had been that man. Marcus had promised himself at 16 years old, standing over a coffin and not crying because he'd used up all his tears years before, that he would never be that man. Some promises mattered more than money. He made 2 slices of toast, buttered them while they were hot so it melted into the bread, and brought them over without a word. Set them down in front of her and started to walk away. I didn't order this. Her voice was quiet but firm, with an edge underneath that suggested she'd had practice defending herself. Marcus turned back. Extra from the breakfast rush. I can't pay for this. I'm not asking you to. Why? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with more weight than 2 words should carry. Marcus could see the suspicion in her eyes, the wariness of someone who'd learned that nothing came free, that kindness always had a price tag attached. He met her gaze and let the truth sit there, simple and clean. Because I can, and you need it. That's enough. She stared at him for a long moment, and something in her face shifted. Not softness exactly, more like a door that had been locked for a very long time, creaking open just a crack. Thank you. You're welcome. He walked back to the counter, and behind him he heard her start to eat. Not fast like someone who was starving, but careful. Grateful. Like she was trying to make it last as long as possible, because she didn't know when the next meal would come. Sharon was waiting with her arms crossed and her mouth set in a line that said she was done holding back. You gave her free food. So now she'll come back every day expecting free food. Marcus shrugged and went back to the grill. There was an order up that needed plating. Then she comes back. You're an idiot, you know that? Probably, but I'll sleep tonight. He meant it too. The truth was that rich men slept on silk sheets and couldn't close their eyes. They worried about stock portfolios and tax brackets and whether their second house in the Hamptons was impressive enough. Poor men slept on mattresses with springs that poked through and slept like babies because they didn't have anything heavy enough to weigh on their conscience. The difference wasn't money. It was whether you could look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and not hate what looked back. Sharon walked away muttering under her breath. Ray moved closer and spoke quiet enough that only Marcus could hear. Good man, Marcus. Those 2 words mattered more than Sharon's disapproval. Ray had 3 kids and worked 2 jobs and still found ways to help his neighbors when their cars broke down or their heat got shut off. If Ray thought you were doing right, you probably were. The woman finished her toast slowly, then drank her coffee in small sips that made it last 20 minutes. When she was done, she stood and left exactly $2.50 on the table. Every cent she had. She walked toward the door and paused with her hand on it, looking back over her shoulder. Her eyes found Marcus across the room. She nodded once. Marcus nodded back. Then she was gone, and the diner felt emptier somehow, like something important had walked out with her. The next morning she came back at 7:30 sharp. Same booth, same worn jacket, same tangled hair. Marcus brought her coffee and toast without asking. She paid $1.50 this time, half of what it cost, and Marcus didn't mention the shortfall. She ate slowly, drank her coffee, and left. This became the routine. Every morning at 7:30, she appeared like a ghost materializing from the cold Philadelphia streets. Every morning Marcus brought coffee and toast. Sometimes she paid full price. Sometimes she could only manage $1. Sometimes she had nothing and just looked at him with those sharp, sad eyes, and he brought it anyway. Sharon complained every single day. Daryl made jokes about the drifter. Customers sometimes moved tables, but Marcus kept doing it, And after 5 days, it stopped being a choice and started being something else. Something that felt like it mattered more than money or pride or what other people thought. On day 5, she spoke first. What's your name? Marcus. Thank you, Marcus. What's yours? She hesitated, and in that pause, Marcus saw calculation happening behind her eyes, weighing something, deciding something. Kate. Nice to meet you, Kate. On day 8, real conversation started. Kate asked if he had family. Marcus tensed immediately, the old wounds from Jessica leaving still raw even 5 years later. Trust was hard when the person you'd loved most had walked out without looking back. Why do you want to know? She looked surprised by his defensiveness, and something in her expression made him feel like an asshole. Just making conversation. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. Marcus forced himself to relax. She wasn't Jessica. She was just a woman trying to connect to another human being, and he was being a dick about it because his ex-wife had broken something in him that maybe couldn't be fixed. I have a son, Tyler. He's 7. That's wonderful. You? No, not anymore. The way she said it suggested there was a story there, something that hurt to remember. Marcus didn't push. If she wanted to tell him, she would. If she didn't, that was her business. On day 10, she asked about his dreams. Is this what you want to do? Diner cooking? Marcus felt his pride flare up, hot and immediate. It was the same reaction he always had when people suggested what he did wasn't good enough. Like his job was something to be ashamed of instead of honest work that kept his kid fed. It's honest work. I didn't say it wasn't, but is it what you want? He stared at her across the counter, and something in her face made him realize she wasn't judging him. She was genuinely asking. Like she really wanted to know what he dreamed about when the world wasn't pressing down quite so hard. Want doesn't pay bills. But if it did? Marcus found himself talking, the words coming out before he could stop them. About wanting his own place once. Small bistro, maybe 40 seats. Open kitchen so people could watch the food being made. Menu that changed based on what was fresh and good, not what was cheapest. Real cooking, the kind that made people close their eyes and remember why they loved food in the first place. Why didn't you? Life, kid, ex-wife who left, bills, reality. What would you call it? Your restaurant? Never thought that far ahead. Dreams die before they get names. Kate's face did something complicated, a mix of sadness and understanding that made Marcus think she knew exactly what he meant. Like maybe she had dreams that died unnamed too. I understand that more than you know. On day 12 it rained. Not the light drizzle Philadelphia got used to, but hard rain that soaked through jackets and made the streets smell like oil and rust. Kate came in looking worse than usual, jacket dark with water, hair plastered to her head, shivering so hard her teeth chattered. Marcus brought coffee and toast in a dry towel from the back. He set all 3 down in front of her. You don't have to, I know. She took the towel and dried her hair, and when she lowered her hands to reach for the coffee, Marcus saw something that made his heart stop. On her wrist, barely visible under the wet sleeve of her jacket, was an Apple Watch. The Ultra model, $800 retail, the kind of watch homeless people didn't wear. Marcus said nothing, but his mind started turning over questions like stones, looking at what lived underneath. On day 14 came the moment that changed everything. Marcus had arrived early, 5:30 instead of 5:45, because Tyler had a morning assembly at school and Marcus had dropped him off before the before-school program even opened. He came through the back door and heard a voice from the women's bathroom. The door was cracked open just enough that sound carried. Kate's voice, but different. Not the soft, uncertain tone she used with him. This was sharp, commanding, the kind of voice that expected to be obeyed and didn't tolerate argument. Margaret, I told you, no intervention. I don't care what the board thinks. The test needs to complete properly. He can't know. Absolutely cannot know. Marcus froze with his hand on his locker door. The test. Board. Margaret. These weren't words that belonged in the vocabulary of someone who slept in shelters and counted change for coffee. I understand the timeline is accelerating. That's not the point. He's different. All 46 before him failed in days. He's lasted 2 weeks. That means something. 46. She'd tested 46 other people, and he was number 47. I need another month minimum, if I have another month. The last sentence dropped into silence like a stone into water, and Marcus felt something cold slide down his spine. If I have another month. What the hell did that mean? The bathroom door swung open and Kate stepped out. She was 10 feet away before she saw Marcus standing there. Her face went through a progression Marcus could read like a book. Surprise, fear, calculation. Then her expression smoothed into the uncertain, vulnerable Kate he'd come to know. And Marcus realized with a sick feeling that he was watching her put on a mask. She walked past him without a word. He didn't stop her. All through the breakfast rush, Marcus's mind churned. Who was she really? What test? Why him? Every time he looked at her sitting in that back booth, sipping coffee and eating toast he'd made for her, he felt something sharp and painful lodge in his chest. It felt like betrayal, which was stupid because you couldn't be betrayed by someone you didn't really know. But he'd started to know her, or he'd thought he had, and finding out it might all be performance made him feel like the ground had shifted under his feet. On day 18, Tyler came to the diner. The babysitter had called at the last minute, some emergency Marcus didn't have time to verify, and he couldn't afford to miss a shift. So Tyler sat at the counter with a coloring book and a box of crayons Marcus had picked up at the dollar store. And Marcus felt guilt burn hot in his stomach because 7-year-olds shouldn't spend their morning in diners. He was failing his son, just in a different way than his father had failed him. Kate watched Tyler from her booth. Marcus could see her tracking the boy's movements, and something about the intensity of her attention made him nervous. Tyler looked up and caught her staring. Instead of being scared, he smiled and waved. Kate hesitated, then waved back. It was small and tentative, like she wasn't sure how to interact with children. Tyler, being Tyler and having inherited exactly none of his father's wariness, took this as an invitation. He slid off his stool and walked over to her booth with his coloring book held out like an offering. Hi, I'm Tyler. Do you like dinosaurs? Kate's face transformed. The mask slipped and something real showed through, something warm and genuine that made Marcus's chest tighten. She smiled, and it was the first real smile he'd seen from her. I don't know much about them. This is T-Rex. He's my favorite because he's strong, but he's actually nice if you're nice to him. That's a good philosophy. I wish more people believed that. Tyler cocked his head, confused. What's philosophy? It's a fancy word for how you think about the world. Oh, like how Dad says everyone deserves kindness. Kate's eyes went to Marcus across the room, and there was something in them that made it hard to breathe. Something like recognition, like gratitude, like pain. Yes, exactly like that. Marcus watched them talk and felt the anger from the overheard phone call start to fade. Whatever she was doing, whatever test she was running, this moment with Tyler was real. He could see it in the way her shoulders relaxed, in the way she listened to his son talk about dinosaurs like he was explaining quantum physics, in the way she looked at Tyler like he was precious. Kate pulled a napkin from the dispenser and began to fold it. Her hands shook, but she moved with precision, creasing and turning and folding until she'd created something beautiful. A paper crane. She held it out to Tyler. For you. Tyler's eyes went wide. Wow, how did you do that? I'll teach you. And she did. For the next 20 minutes, Kate showed Tyler how to fold paper into wings and body and head. Her hands trembled the whole time, but she never lost patience. Tyler messed up twice and she just unfolded it and started again, her voice gentle and encouraging. Marcus cleaned the counter for the third time, not because it needed it, but because he couldn't stop watching. Ray appeared at his elbow. She's good with kids. Yeah, you care about her. Marcus tensed. It was one thing to feel it, another thing entirely to have someone else say it out loud. I don't even know her, but you want to. Ray said it without judgment, just observation. Marcus didn't answer because what was there to say? Yes, he wanted to know her. He wanted to understand why someone who could fold origami with the precision of an artist and spoke with vocabulary that suggested real education was sitting in a diner pretending to be homeless. He wanted to know why her hands shook and why she'd tested 46 people before him and what exactly she was looking for. But more than that, he wanted to know the woman underneath the mystery, the one who smiled at his son, the one who held her coffee cup with both hands like it was the most important thing in the world. Tyler succeeded in making a crane wobbly but recognizable and held it up for Marcus to see. "Dad, look!" "That's amazing, buddy." Tyler turned to Kate. "Thank you. Can I come back tomorrow and you teach me more?" Kate looked at Marcus, and he saw her asking permission. The fact that she asked, that she recognized this was his son and his choice, made something in his chest loosen. He nodded. Kate's face lit up. "I would like that very much." Tyler hugged her, an impulsive 7-year-old gesture that clearly caught her off guard. She froze for a half second, then her arms came up and wrapped around him gently. When Tyler pulled back, Marcus could see tears on her face. After Tyler left with the babysitter who'd finally shown up, Kate approached the counter. Marcus was wiping it down again, definitely not looking for excuses to be near where she was standing. "He's wonderful." "I'm trying." "No, you're succeeding." "He's kind. That comes from you." Marcus felt emotion rise in his throat, unexpected and overwhelming. He'd been raising Tyler alone for 5 years, always worried he wasn't enough, that his son needed a mother and a father who could give him more than hand-me-down clothes and dollar store crayons. Hearing that he was doing something right, that his son was kind, made him want to cry, and he couldn't figure out why. His mother left when he was 2. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough." The words came out before he could stop them. He never talked about Jessica, never admitted the fear that lived in his chest every single day, the terror that he was failing Tyler in ways he couldn't see. Kate's hand reached across the counter and touched his, just briefly. "You're more than enough. He looks at you like you hung the moon." Silence stretched between them, loaded with things neither of them knew how to say. Marcus pulled his hand back, first because the touch felt too good, and good things in his life had a habit of disappearing. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure." "I've met billionaires who raise cruel, entitled children. You're raising a boy who offered to draw me a dinosaur to make me happy. That's worth more than all the money in the world." The way she said it, casual like she'd actually met billionaires, made Marcus remember the phone call, the test, the Apple Watch, all the little things that didn't add up. "How would you know about billionaires?" Something flickered across her face. Guard going up. "I used to work in that world. Before." "Before what?" "Before I lost everything." She said it flat, final, like a door closing. Marcus wanted to push, but something in her eyes stopped him. Whatever she'd lost, it still hurt to remember. Over the next few days, Marcus started paying attention. Really paying attention. Kate's vocabulary was too educated for someone who'd been living rough. She said things like "quite astute" and "I appreciate your perspective," instead of the casual slang most people used. Her posture changed when she thought no one was watching, straightening from the hunched defensive crouch into something more commanding. Once, a customer bumped into her on his way to the bathroom. Kate's reaction was immediate and sharp. "Watch it," not scared, not apologetic, annoyed and authoritative, like she expected people to get out of her way. Then she caught herself, and the vulnerable Kate slid back into place like a mask. Marcus watched her across the diner and felt anger start to build in his chest alongside the confused tangle of feelings he didn't want to name. She was lying. About what? He didn't know. But she was lying, and he'd let himself start to care about her, and that made him feel like the idiot Sharon kept saying he was. On day 26, everything came to a head. Marcus arrived early again, 5:30, and took the trash out to the dumpster in the alley. The back door didn't close all the way, and through the gap he heard Kate's voice. She was on her phone again, pacing in the space between the dumpster and the building. "Margaret, the experiment is showing promising results. Subject 47 demonstrates consistent altruistic behavior across multiple scenarios." "No, I haven't told him. Because the moment he knows, everything changes. The whole point is authenticity." Subject 47, that was him. He was subject 47 in some experiment she was running. Marcus dropped the trash bag. It hit the ground with a crash loud enough to echo off the brick walls. Kate spun around and saw him standing there 10 feet away. Her face went through every emotion at once before settling on something that might have been fear. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Marcus spoke, and his voice came out harder than he'd ever heard it. "Who are you really?" Kate opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I can explain. Then explain. Now. Not here. Not yet. Then when? When you're ready to understand. Something in Marcus snapped. All the anger he kept buried, all the frustration from being poor and powerless and having nothing while people in towers made money hand over fist, all of it came rushing up and out. Fuck that. I've been feeding you for a month. I let my son get attached to you, and you're running some kind of experiment? What am I, a lab rat? No, God, no, Marcus, please. My name is Mr. Cole to you. He turned and walked back inside, slamming the door hard enough that the frame rattled. Behind him, he could hear her calling his name, but he didn't turn back. His hands were shaking when he got to the kitchen, and Ray took one look at his face and went still. What happened? She's been lying, the whole time. All of it, a lie. About what? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of anger and hurt and confusion. Kate didn't come into the diner. Marcus made her coffee anyway, cutting the toast into pieces the way she liked it because his hands remembered even when his brain was screaming at him to stop. He set it on her table and it sat there, getting cold while the seat stayed empty. Sharon looked at the untouched food. Told you she wouldn't last. Marcus didn't answer. He went back to the grill and cooked through the lunch rush. And when 2 o'clock came and his shift ended, he grabbed his jacket and headed home. Tyler would be getting out of school soon. Marcus needed to pull himself together before then, needed to stop feeling like someone had reached into his chest and rearranged everything inside. That evening, Tyler asked about Kate. Dad, where was Kate today? I don't know, buddy. Is she okay? Marcus lied without hesitation. Yeah, she's fine. Is she coming back tomorrow? I don't know. Tyler went quiet and Marcus could see him processing, could see the wheels turning in his 7-year-old brain that was too smart for its own good. Did you make her mad? The question hit harder than it should have. Why would you think that? Because you make that face. The face you made when Mom called and didn't want to talk to me. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. His son was 7 years old and already reading disappointment in his father's face. Already learning that people left and it hurt and you had to pretend it was fine. I'm sorry, Tyler. It's okay, but I miss her. She was teaching me origami. I know. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about Kate's hands shaking as she folded paper cranes, about the way she'd looked at Tyler like he was precious, about how she'd said billionaires like she'd met them personally, about the Apple Watch and the phone calls and the word experiment. At 2 in the morning, he gave up on sleep and went to the laptop he'd bought used 5 years ago. It took forever to boot up, but finally the search bar appeared. Marcus typed in experiment subject 47 and got nothing useful. He tried Catherine Elizabeth Whitmore because that was the name the lawyer had said in the flash forward that felt like it happened to someone else, and found Forbes articles and society pages and photos of a blonde woman in evening gowns that looked nothing like Kate. But the eyes were the same, sharp and intelligent and sad. Marcus stared at the screen until his vision blurred and whispered to the empty apartment, "Who are you, Kate?" The next morning, Marcus arrived at work and Kate was standing outside the diner. She looked worse than he'd ever seen her, pale and drawn with dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't slept either. When she saw him, she straightened, and he caught a glimpse of that other posture, the commanding one, before she let herself slump again. Marcus, please, let me explain. Every instinct screamed at him to walk past her, to go inside and pretend she didn't exist. But his feet stopped moving, and he stood there on the sidewalk while early morning traffic rushed past and the world moved around them like they were statues. I'm listening. 2 years ago, I lost everything. Everyone I thought loved me left. I needed to know if anyone would care about me when I had nothing. So you tested people? Yes. How many? You were number 47. And the other 46? Failed, every one. You were the only one who passed. The words should have felt good, should have felt like winning something. Instead, they just made Marcus feel tired. Past what? The kindness test, the will you care about me when I have nothing test. Marcus laughed and it came out bitter. Congratulations, you found a sucker. No. Kate stepped closer and there were tears on her face. I found the only good man I've ever met. Don't, Marcus held up Hampton. Don't do that. Don't try to make this okay with pretty words. You lied to me. You used me. You made me care about someone who doesn't even exist. I do exist. Kate exists. She's more real than Catherine ever was. Who the hell is Catherine? Kate took a breath like she was about to jump off a cliff. Catherine Elizabeth Whitmore. That's my real name. I own Whitmore Pharmaceuticals, $900 million, and I've never had anyone love me for just being me. Marcus stared at her, and the world tilted on its axis. $900 million. The woman he'd been bringing coffee and toast to, the woman his son had hugged, the woman he'd started to care about despite every wall he'd built around himself, was worth more money than he could comprehend. You're a billionaire. Yes. And you pretended to be homeless. Yes. Why? To find out if anyone would see me, really see me, not my money or my name, just me. Marcus felt something hot and painful lodge in his throat. Part of him understood, part of him even sympathized. But the rest of him, the part that had been hurt by Jessica and scarred by his father and shaped by a lifetime of people with power using people without it, that part was screaming that he should walk away. I need time. I understand. I don't know if I can trust you. I know. Marcus turned to go inside, then stopped. He looked back at her, this woman who was Kate and Catherine and possibly neither. This woman who'd made his son smile and made Marcus feel something he thought he had locked away forever. Was any of it real? Kate's eyes met his, and they were full of something that looked like pain. All of it was real. That's what made it matter. Marcus walked inside without another word, and Kate stood on the sidewalk for a long moment before turning and walking away into the Philadelphia morning. Marcus watched her go through the diner window and felt like he'd lost something he'd never actually had. The diner felt wrong without her. Marcus arrived each morning and scanned the back booth out of habit, finding only empty vinyl and the memory of how she'd held her coffee cup. He made the coffee anyway, cut the toast into small pieces, set both on her table and watched them go cold while Sharon shook her head and customers pretended not to notice. 3 days passed like open wounds. Tyler asked about Kate every evening, and Marcus ran out of ways to lie convincingly. On the fourth morning, Ray cornered him by the dish pit. Brother, you gotta let it go. Let what go? Whatever's eating you. Kate, the lies, all of it. Marcus flipped eggs with more force than necessary. I don't even know who she is. Does it matter? The question hung there like smoke. Marcus wanted to say yes, it mattered. Everything about it mattered because you couldn't build anything real on lies. But another part of him, the part that remembered how she'd taught Tyler origami with shaking hands and infinite patience, that part wasn't sure. Yes, because I was falling for someone who doesn't exist. Ray's voice dropped lower, gentler. Or maybe she exists more than you know. Maybe the lies were the disguise, and Kate was the truth. That doesn't make sense. Love rarely does, brother. After his shift ended, Marcus walked through Fishtown looking for her. He checked Liberty Lands Park where homeless people gathered under the pavilion, showed a grainy photo he'd taken of her teaching Tyler to a group huddled around a trash can fire. Nobody recognized her. He tried the Women's Community Center on Lehigh, the chosen 300 Ministries shelter, the Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission. Shelter directors looked at him with tired eyes that had seen too many desperate searches. Son, if she doesn't want to be found, you won't find her. I have to try. Why? Because she'd looked at his son like he was precious. Because she'd asked about his dreams when nobody else cared. Because for 3 weeks, sitting across from her with coffee between them, Marcus had felt less alone than he'd felt in 5 years. Because I need to understand. On the 5th day after she vanished, Marcus's phone rang during the lunch rush. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him swipe accept and press it to his ear while balancing 3 plates. Mr. Cole, this is Principal Henderson from Fishtown Elementary. Marcus's blood went cold. What happened? Tyler was in an altercation. He's hurt. We've called an ambulance. The plates hit the counter too hard. One cracked straight down the middle. How hurt? He's bleeding. You need to come now. Marcus told Ray he was leaving, didn't wait for a response, ran out the door and into the street. A taxi almost hit him. He didn't care. The hospital was 12 blocks and he covered them at a dead sprint, lungs burning, heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. The emergency room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Tyler sat on a bed with blood crusted around his nose and a cut on his forehead that would definitely need stitches. When he saw Marcus, his face crumpled. "Dad." Marcus pulled him close, careful of the injuries, and felt rage and terror war in his chest. "What happened, buddy?" "Jake said we're trash. He said you're poor and we don't matter." The rage won. Marcus saw red at the edges of his vision, wanted to find this Jake kid's parents and make them understand what it felt like to have your child hurt. But Tyler was still talking, his voice small. "I pushed him. He pushed back harder. I fell." "Tyler, you can't fight." "But Dad, he said mean things." "I know, but violence isn't the answer." Tyler's eyes were too old, too aware. "You fought for Kate, though. I saw you." The words hit Marcus like a fist. His son had seen him lose control, had watched him become the angry man Marcus swore he'd never be. The doctor walked in before Marcus could figure out how to respond. "Mr. Cole, your son needs stitches. 5 or 6. Do you have insurance?" The shame burned hotter than the anger had. "No." "The bill will be approximately $1,200. $1,200. Marcus had $80 in his checking account and $6 in his wallet. He looked at his son's bloody face and wanted to scream. "Can I do a payment plan?" The doctor's face showed pity that made Marcus want to punch something. "We'll work something out. Let me get supplies." The door closed. Tyler reached for Marcus's hand. "I'm sorry, Dad. I made everything expensive." Marcus's throat closed up. 7 years old and already apologizing for needing medical care. Already understanding they couldn't afford emergencies. Already learning to make himself smaller so he wouldn't be a burden. "Tyler, buddy, this isn't your fault. Never think that." The door opened again, but it wasn't the doctor. A nurse stepped in, looking confused. "Mr. Cole, there's someone here." Catherine walked through the door behind her, but not Kate, not the woman with tangled hair and worn clothes who'd sat in the back booth folding paper cranes. This was someone else entirely. Tailored charcoal pantsuit that probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. Hair pulled back in a severe bun that showed the elegant bones of her face. Diamond studs that caught the fluorescent light. Heels that clicked authority with every step. She moved like she owned the space. Like the hospital was hers and everyone in it who worked for her. Marcus didn't recognize her for 3 full seconds. Then her eyes met his and he saw Kate underneath the armor. "Is he all right?" The voice was different too. Crisp, commanding, the voice of someone who expected immediate answers and got them. "Kate?" "Catherine." The correction landed like a slap. She moved to Tyler's bedside and her face softened when she looked at him, some of the CEO mask slipping to show real concern underneath. "Hi, Tyler. Remember me?" "Kate, you came back." "I heard you got hurt. I wanted to make sure you were okay." The doctor returned with supplies and stopped short when he saw Catherine. His eyes went to her handbag, probably worth more than his monthly salary, then to her face. "I'm sorry, only family." Catherine pulled a black card from her purse and held it out like a weapon. "Bill everything to this account, and I want your best pediatric surgeon, not an ER resident." The doctor hesitated. "Our best surgeon is in the middle of..." "Pull him out. Cancel whatever he's doing. This child gets priority." "Ma'am, we have protocols." Catherine's eyes went ice cold, the same eyes that had stared down hostile takeovers and fired entire departments without flinching. "I own a pharmaceutical company that supplies 30% of this hospital's medications. Do you understand what I'm saying? Call your best surgeon now." The doctor's face went pale. He practically ran from the room. The doctor's face changed when he saw the card. Amex Centurion, invitation only. The kind of thing that separated the very rich from everyone else. "Ms. Whitmore, Catherine Whitmore." Recognition flickered across his face. "As in Whitmore Pharmaceuticals?" "Yes, now get him the best care available. Immediately." The doctor practically bowed on his way out. Catherine turned to Marcus, and the softness vanished, replaced by something colder. "We need to talk. Privately." Marcus looked at Tyler. Buddy, stay here. I'll be right outside the door. In the hallway, Marcus rounded on her with fury that had been building for days. Who the fuck are you? I wanted to tell you. Sorry, you've been lying for weeks. I had reasons. What reasons? You're some rich bitch slumming it for fun? The words came out cruel, designed to hurt, and they hit their mark. Catherine's face went rigid, the CEO mask slamming back into place. Watch your tone. Or what? You'll buy me like you buy everyone else? Something in her face cracked, hurt bleeding through. That's not fair. Fair, you lied about everything. Who you are, what you wanted, why you were there. Not everything. Catherine's voice dropped, became smaller, more vulnerable. Kate showing through Catherine's armor. My feelings for you, those were real. Feelings? You don't even know what that word means. Tears formed in her eyes, and Marcus hated himself for putting them there, even as rage still burned hot in his chest. I know better than you think. She took a breath like she was steadying herself before jumping. 2 years ago, my parents died. Car accident on I-95. 3 months later, Jonathan, my fiancé, left me. He said I was too much to handle. Said my grief was exhausting. Everyone I thought loved me disappeared. Marcus felt some of the anger drain away, replaced by something more complicated. So you decided to test people? I decided to find out if anyone would care about Catherine the person, not Catherine Whitmore the heiress. By lying? By removing the thing that made everyone lie to me. My wealth. Silence stretched between them, loaded with questions Marcus didn't know how to ask. How many people did you test? You were 47. And the others? Failed, every single one. You were the only one who passed. Passed what? Her voice broke on the words. The kindness test, the will you care about me when I have nothing test. And you did. You cared. You brought me coffee every morning. You cut my toast when my hands shook. You defended me to customers who called me trash. You didn't know I had money. You didn't care. You just saw someone who needed help and you helped. Marcus leaned against the wall because standing felt like too much work suddenly. I don't know if I can trust you. I understand. I was falling for you, for Kate, and Kate doesn't exist. Kate is more real than Catherine ever was. Catherine is what I have to be to run a company. Kate is who I want to be, who I am when nobody's watching. The distinction made a strange kind of sense. Marcus thought about his own armor, the way he kept walls up to protect himself from getting hurt again. Maybe everyone wore masks. Maybe the question wasn't whether the mask was there, but whether you took it off for the right people. There's more you need to know. Catherine's voice had gone quiet, and something in her tone made Marcus's stomach drop. I'm sick. Congenital heart disease. I've had 2 surgeries. The doctors say I have 6 months. Maybe less. The hallway tilted. Marcus grabbed for the wall. What? That's why I came to Philadelphia, why I did the test. I wanted to know before I die if anyone would love me. Jesus, Catherine. And I found you. You loved Kate, even though Kate had nothing. Marcus's throat was too tight to speak. Catherine stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something expensive and complicated that probably had a French name. Of course I did. Why? Because Kate was kind. Kate was real. Kate made me feel like I wasn't alone. Catherine's face crumpled, and suddenly she wasn't the intimidating CEO anymore. She was just Kate, crying in a hospital hallway. I wasn't pretending that part. That was real. All of it. Marcus pulled her into his arms before he could think better of it. She folded against him like she'd been waiting for permission to stop holding herself together. Her body shook with sobs, and Marcus held her and thought about all the ways people could lie while telling the truth. Over the next week, something shifted. Catherine came to the diner each morning, but differently. Sometimes in expensive clothes with her hair styled, looking every inch the CEO. Sometimes as Kate, in worn jeans and tangled hair. She stopped pretending they were separate people. They were both her. On the 3rd day after Tyler's accident, she invited Marcus to her penthouse. He left Tyler with Ray's wife and took the Market Frankfurt line to Rittenhouse Square, where buildings cost more per square foot than most people made in a year. The doorman looked at Marcus's jeans and work boots with barely concealed disdain, but let him through when he gave Catherine's name. The penthouse took up the entire 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed Philadelphia spread out like a circuit board, lights stretching to the horizon. Art on the walls that Marcus recognized from magazines. Furniture that looked uncomfortable and probably cost more than cars. Catherine answered the door in jeans and a sweater, barefoot, looking more like Kate than the woman who'd commanded doctors. "You came. You invited me. I wasn't sure you would." She led him to the kitchen, which was all marble and stainless steel and looked like nobody had ever cooked in it. Catherine opened the refrigerator and pulled out ingredients. "I thought I'd make dinner." "You cook?" "Badly, but I wanted to try." She started on chicken parmesan, and Marcus watched her massacre it with techniques that made his chef's soul weep. When she tried to taste the sauce and burned her tongue, he couldn't help himself. "Here, let me show you." He moved behind her, guided her hands on the spoon, showed her how to blow on it first, how to let it cool on her tongue before swallowing. The proximity made his heart beat faster. Catherine turned her head slightly. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being patient with me, for teaching me." "It's just cooking." "No, it's more than that. You're showing me that I don't have to be perfect, that it's okay to not know things." Ashton, they cooked together, Marcus correcting her technique, Catherine learning with the focus she probably brought to board meetings. When the food was done, they ate at her dining table that could seat 12 but held only 2 plates. "This is good," Marcus admitted. "It's overcooked and underseasoned. But you made it. That counts for something." Catherine smiled, and it reached her eyes this time. "Jonathan had a private chef. He never let me in the kitchen. Said it wasn't appropriate." "What a dick." She laughed, surprised and delighted. "He was. I just didn't see it until after." They talked through dinner about things that mattered and things that didn't. Catherine told him about growing up with nannies and boarding schools, about parents who loved her but were never there. Marcus told her about his father's rages and his mother's quiet endurance, about promising himself he'd be different. "You are different. Tyler adores you. Tyler deserves better than what I can give him. He has you. That's everything." Later, they stood by the windows looking out at the city. Catherine moved closer until their shoulders touched. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you think you could ever forgive me for lying?" He thought about it, really thought about trust and betrayal and the difference between hiding who you were and becoming someone new, about how she'd looked at Tyler in the hospital and how her hands had shaken when she folded paper cranes. "I think I already have." She turned to face him, eyes searching his. "Well, because I understand now. You weren't lying about who you were. You were lying about what you had. There's a difference." Catherine kissed him then, soft and tentative like she was afraid he'd pull away. Marcus didn't. He kissed her back, and it felt like coming home to a place he'd never been. Over the next 10 days, they built something new. Catherine came to Marcus's apartment and didn't flinch at the small space or old furniture. She sat on his sagging couch and played board games with Tyler and laughed when she lost. Marcus taught her to cook properly, and she taught Tyler advanced origami until the apartment was full of cranes and butterflies and frogs. On Saturday, they went to Franklin Square, the 3 of them together. Tyler ran ahead to the playground while Marcus and Catherine walked slowly, her hand in his. "This is nice." "Yeah. I never thought I'd have this. Normal. Family. Is that what we are?" Catherine stopped walking and looked at him with eyes that had seen too much hurt. "I'd like us to be, if you want that." Tyler ran back before Marcus could answer, dragging Catherine toward the carousel. "Kate Mom, come on!" Catherine froze. Tyler had called her Kate Mom, half nickname, half wishful thinking. She looked at Marcus with panic and hope warring on her face. "Is that okay?" Marcus thought about his son having someone who loved him besides his father, about Catherine's face when Tyler hugged her, about building something good out of broken pieces. "Yeah, it's okay." On the carousel, Catherine held Tyler on her painted horse while Marcus stood beside them, and a stranger asked if they wanted a photo. The 3 of them together looking like a family, frozen in pixels that Catherine later said was her favorite picture ever taken. That night, after Tyler was asleep, Catherine stayed. They lay on Marcus's bed in the dark, not having sex, just holding each other. Her head rested on his chest, and he could feel her heartbeat, irregular and too fast. Marcus? Yeah. If I don't make it, promise me you'll use the money to open your restaurant. Promise me Tyler goes to a good school. Promise me you'll find someone else to love. Don't talk like that. Please, let me say this. He tightened his arms around her. I don't want anyone else. You will eventually, and that's okay. I want you to be happy. I can't imagine being happy without you. Her voice broke. You will be, because you're strong. Stronger than you know. 3 days later, Catherine came to the diner looking worse than she had in weeks. Pale, breathless, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her coffee cup. Marcus brought her food she didn't eat and sat with her during his break. You should see a doctor. I see doctors all the time. They can't fix this. Then what can they do? Make me comfortable, buy me time, but not much of either. At 2:30, Marcus was cleaning the grill when he heard something crash. He turned to see Catherine on the floor, collapsed between tables, gasping for air. Her face had gone gray. Someone call 911. Marcus dropped to his knees beside her, cradling her head. Stay with me. Just breathe. I've got you. Catherine's hand found his and gripped with surprising strength. Marcus, I'm scared. I know, but you're going to all be okay. Help is coming. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes that felt like hours. EMTs swarmed, asking questions Marcus didn't know how to answer. Medication she was on, previous episodes, emergency contacts. Marcus went with her because she grabbed his hand and wouldn't let go, and the EMT saw the desperation on both their faces and didn't make him stay behind. At the hospital, case. Doctors and nurses moving with practiced efficiency, Catherine on monitors that beeped wrong rhythms, someone shocking her with paddles, and Marcus watching through a window, praying to a God he'd stopped believing in years ago. Please, don't take her. Not yet. We just started. The doctor emerged after an eternity. Mr. Cole, she's stable. Cardiac episode triggered by stress. We've given her medication. She'll need to stay overnight. Can I see her? 5 minutes. Catherine lay in the bed looking small and fragile, oxygen mask covering half her face. When she saw Marcus, she pulled it off. Hi. Hi, you scared the hell out of me. I'm sorry. He sat beside the bed and took her hand, careful of the IV line. Don't apologize, just don't do that again. I can't promise that. Then fight, please. Fight for more time. Why? Because I'm not ready to lose you. We just started. Tears slid down her face. I'm scared, Marcus. Not of dying, of leaving you and Tyler. I just found you. It's not enough time. Marcus leaned close, his forehead against hers. Then we make every day count. No more hiding, no more armor. Just us, real and honest. For however long we have. The door opened. Private doctors in expensive suits entered, led by an older man who radiated authority. He looked at Marcus like he was a problem to be solved. Ms. Whitmore, we need to discuss treatment options. Catherine's voice came back stronger, CEO tone sliding into place. Not now, it can't wait. The damage to your heart is progressing faster than we anticipated. Without intervention, you have 4 to 6 months. The words hit Marcus like bullets. 4 to 6 months. Less than half a year. 1 season. Nothing. I'll think about it. We don't have time for deliberation. We can try the experimental surgery, 30% success rate, or we can make you comfortable. Catherine looked at Marcus, and he saw her asking a question she couldn't voice. You should do the surgery. 30% chance I live. 70% chance I die on the table. But 30% chance is better than 0. Is it? Living with surgeries and pain and hospitals? Or should I spend my last months actually living? Marcus didn't know how to answer that. The doctor cleared his throat impatiently. Ms. Whitmore, I need a decision. Then you'll wait for one. Now leave. After they left, Catherine turned back to Marcus. What would you do? I want you to live, however that looks. Even if living means suffering. I just want more time with you. She pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like salt and fear. Me too. The next days blurred together. Catherine came home from the hospital and came to the diner each morning, weaker each time. Marcus cooked for her, real food designed to be easy to digest and nutritious. She ate small bites and pretended it was enough. Tyler sat with her during homework, and she helped him with math while her hands shook. On the seventh day after the hospital, Catherine arrived at the diner late, 9 instead of 7:30. She could barely walk, had to hold on to tables for support. Marcus met her at the door. "You shouldn't have come. I needed to see you to tell you I've made a decision." They sat in her usual booth. Marcus held her hand across the table. "About the surgery?" "I'm not doing it." Everything stopped. "What? Why?" "Because I don't want to spend my last months in hospitals. I want to spend them with you and Tyler. Living. Really living. But you could survive. 30% chance. And even if I do, months of recovery, weak, in pain, unable to do anything. I don't want that. I want to enjoy the time I have left." "How long?" Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Dr. Rothman says maybe 6 weeks, maybe less." 6 weeks, 42 days, 1,000 hours. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "I can't lose you." "You won't, not really. I'll always be with you." As she stood to leave, something fell from her bag. A torn page, handwriting Marcus recognized. He picked it up and read, "Day 89, November 3rd, subject MC. The experiment is compromised. I can no longer remain objective. Marcus is not just a subject anymore. He's the man I love. This was never supposed to happen. But I can't stop. I don't want to stop. For the first time in 38 years, I feel alive." Note, day 1 was March 15th, 2024, the day I first went undercover. 46 subjects tested before Marcus. Day 89 is the day everything changed. Marcus stared at the words. Day 89. Almost 3 months ago. She'd loved him for 3 months and never said it until now. The next morning, Catherine didn't come to the diner. Marcus made coffee anyway, cut toast, set both on her table. The seat stayed empty. Day 2, the same. Day 3, he called her phone. It went to voicemail. On day 4, he went to her penthouse. The doorman looked uncomfortable. "Ms. Whitmore checked out yesterday, said she was going away." "Where?" "She didn't say, just told me to tell you she's sorry." Marcus felt panic rise like floodwater. "Did she leave anything? A note?" "No, sir, just the message." For 3 days, Marcus searched, called every hospital in Philadelphia, drove to Boston and stood outside Whitmore Pharmaceuticals headquarters until security escorted him away. Went to her penthouse and pounded on the door until neighbors complained. She had vanished as completely as she'd appeared. Ray found him on the 5th night, sitting in the dark diner at midnight, staring at her empty booth. "Brother, talk to me." "She's gone. She left without saying goodbye." Maybe she had reasons. What reasons could justify this? Ray's voice was gentle. Maybe saying goodbye was too hard. Maybe she's doing what she thinks is best. For you. For Tyler. By leaving? By not making you watch her die. Marcus wanted to argue but couldn't. He remembered his mother's death from cancer when he was 12. Remembered the way it had destroyed her slowly until there was nothing left but pain and morphine haze. Remembered wishing she'd died faster so it would hurt less. Maybe Catherine was giving him the same gift. Maybe she was sparing him the slow horror of watching her fade. Or maybe she was just scared, and alone, and dying somewhere he couldn't find her. On the 6th day, Tyler asked the question Marcus had been dreading. "Is Catherine coming back?" Marcus couldn't lie anymore. "I don't know, buddy. I hope she does. I miss her." "Me too." "Dad?" Tyler's voice got smaller. "Do you think she's happy, wherever she is?" "I hope so." "Me too, because she deserves to be happy. She was sad for so long." That night, after Tyler was asleep, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered with his heart in his throat. "Hello? Mr. Cole, this is Margaret Calloway. I'm calling about Catherine Whitmore." The world held its breath. "Is she—" Margaret's voice cracked. "She passed away this morning. I'm very sorry." The phone fell from Marcus's hand. Distantly, he heard Margaret still talking, but the words were just noise. Catherine was dead. The woman he'd loved, The woman who taught his son origami and kissed him in her penthouse and made him believe he deserved good things, she was gone. Marcus slid down the wall until he was sitting on the kitchen floor, and the grief hit him like a tidal wave. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the crushing weight of loss pressing down until he thought his chest would cave in. Somewhere in another room, Tyler's alarm clock ticked toward morning. Outside, Philadelphia slept on, unaware that Marcus's world had just ended. And in the silence, Marcus whispered her name like a prayer that came too late. Catherine. Ray found him 40 minutes later, sitting on the kitchen floor with his back against the cabinet and his phone face down beside him like he couldn't bear to look at it. The older man must have used the spare key Marcus had given him for emergencies, and this qualified. Ray crouched down, knees popping, and put a hand on Marcus's shoulder without saying anything. Sometimes silence was the only appropriate response to grief this raw. She's dead. The words came out flat, empty of everything except the terrible truth they carried. I know. Margaret called me too. She gave me your address. Marcus's hands were shaking. He pressed them against his thighs, but couldn't make them stop. I never got to say goodbye. I never told her I loved her. She knew, brother. She knew. How? I was angry when she left. What if she died thinking I hated her? Ray settled onto the floor beside him, their shoulders touching in that way men had of offering comfort without making a production of it. You read that journal page, day 89. She knew you loved her long before you figured it out yourself. Morning light started creeping through the window above the sink. In 6 hours, Marcus would have to tell Tyler that the woman who'd called herself Kate Mom was never coming back. The thought of seeing his son's face break made Marcus want to crawl out of his own skin. How do I tell him? The truth, same way you'd want someone to tell you. At 7:30, Tyler emerged from his room with sleep-messy hair and questions in his eyes. He took one look at Marcus's face and stopped in the doorway. Is it Catherine? Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded, and Tyler's face crumpled in a way that would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. Is she? Yeah, buddy. She died yesterday. Tyler stood frozen for a long moment, processing in that way children did when something incomprehensible crashed into their world. Then his voice came out small and lost. Did it hurt? I don't think so. Her heart just stopped. Where is she now? Marcus pulled Tyler onto his lap even though the kid was getting too big for it, held him close while his own heart felt like it was being crushed in a vice. I don't know, heaven maybe. Will we see her again? Someday. Not for a long time, but someday. Tyler started crying, the kind of deep sobs that shook his whole body, and Marcus held him and cried too. They stayed like that until the sun was fully up and Philadelphia woke around them. Two people trying to figure out how to keep living when part of them had died. Margaret called again that afternoon with details Marcus barely processed. Private funeral in Boston. Tomorrow at 2. Catherine had left specific instructions that Marcus be invited. There would be a will reading afterward. I don't want anything. Margaret's voice carried a weight that suggested she'd expected this. She wanted you to have it. Please come. Marcus drove to Boston at dawn with Tyler sleeping in the passenger seat. 3 hours on I-95 gave him too much time to think about the last conversation they had had, about how she'd chosen not to fight because she wanted to live instead of survive, about how maybe that was the bravest thing anyone could do. The cemetery was in Brookline, old money and older graves, a private section with headstones that cost more than houses. 20 people gathered in expensive black clothes, and Marcus felt like an intruder in his department store suit that he'd bought for his mother's funeral and hadn't worn since. Board members whispered when he and Tyler walked up. Who's that? I don't know, not family. Margaret detached from the crowd and approached with a face that had been crying recently. Mr. Cole, thank you for coming. She wanted me here. She did, very much. The priest spoke about Catherine Whitmore, successful businesswoman and philanthropist and dutiful daughter. He talked about growing the company 40% in 2 years, about strategic acquisitions and market dominance. He made her sound like a spreadsheet with a heartbeat. Marcus stood there thinking about how nobody in this crowd knew her at all. They knew Catherine Whitmore, CEO. They didn't know Kate, who'd held coffee cups with both hands and taught a 7-year-old boy that people could be strong and kind at the same time. A board member spoke next, going on about tough decisions and brilliant strategy and how Catherine had transformed the company. Zero mention of her as a person. Zero acknowledgement that she'd been lonely and scared and searching for something they'd failed to give her. The priest asked if anyone else wanted to speak. Silence fell like snow. These people who'd worked with her for years, who'd made millions because of her decisions, and none of them had anything personal to say. Marcus felt anger cut through the grief, sharp and clarifying. He stood up. Ray looked surprised but didn't try to stop him. Marcus walked to the front and turned to face the crowd. Board members stared like he'd stripped naked. I didn't know Catherine Whitmore, the CEO. His voice carried across the cemetery, steady despite the shaking in his chest. I knew Kate Morrison, the woman who sat in my diner and drank terrible coffee, and I want to tell you about her. He could see confusion on their faces, calculation about who this person was and whether he was important enough to matter. Marcus didn't care. Kate came into Miller's diner 2 months ago. Everyone avoided her, but there was something in her eyes that made me want to help. So I brought her coffee and toast. Every morning for weeks. She taught my son origami. She asked me about my dreams, like what I said actually mattered. She made me feel seen. Someone in the back shifted uncomfortably. Marcus kept going. Then I found out she wasn't really Kate. She was Catherine, billionaire, CEO. Someone so far above my world, I had no right to love her. But I did. I loved her. Not because of who she pretended to be, but because of who she really was. His voice threatened to break, but he pushed through. She was kind. She was brave. She was searching for proof that people could be good, that someone could love her for herself, not her money. I hope I gave her that. I hope in the short time we had she felt loved. Because she was, by me, by my son, completely. Tyler was crying openly now. Ray had his hand on the boy's shoulder. Catherine, if you can hear me, thank you for seeing me, for teaching me that love isn't about deserving it, it's about giving it freely. You gave me everything, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worth it. Marcus walked back to his seat through absolute silence. Then Tyler stood up and walked over and hugged him, and the sound of a child crying for someone he'd loved broke whatever dam had been holding the crowd back. Margaret openly wept. Even some of the board members looked moved, which probably meant they were human after all. An elderly woman approached afterward, elegant in black with pearls that had probably been in her family for generations. I'm Elizabeth Whitmore, Catherine's aunt. That was beautiful, thank you. I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry for yours. She loved you very much. I could tell from her letters. Marcus's throat closed up. She wrote you letters? The last few weeks of her life, she told me about you and Tyler, about feeling happy for the first time in years. You gave her that gift. Elizabeth touched his arm gently. She would want you to be happy. Don't let grief steal that from you. The will reading happened in a conference room that could have held 50, but only had 15. Margaret and another lawyer sat at the head of a polished table that reflected the overhead lights. Marcus held Tyler's hand and tried to focus as the lawyer read through legal language that meant nothing to him. The estate totaled $900 million. $500 million to the Catherine Whitmore Foundation, $300 million to family trusts, $50 million to employees, $40 million to medical research, and $10 million to Marcus Cole. The room exploded. A board member shot to his feet. $10 million? Who the hell is this man? Another voice, sharp and suspicious. This has to be fraud. Catherine wasn't in her right mind. She was ill. She couldn't have. The lawyer's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The will was executed 6 months ago when Mrs. Whitmore was of sound mind and body. It's ironclad. Any challenges will be expensive and unsuccessful. Marcus couldn't process the number. 10 million. More money than he could conceptualize. Enough to solve every problem he'd ever had and create entirely new ones. Margaret held up a thick envelope. There's also a personal letter. Catherine requested Mr. Cole read it in private. A board member's face went red. We have a right to know what's in that letter? No, you don't. It's personal correspondence. Margaret stood and gestured for Marcus to follow. She led him to a smaller office with a window overlooking Boston Common. Tyler waited outside with Ray while Marcus sat down with 8 pages of handwriting that was the last thing Catherine would ever say to him. "My dearest Marcus," it began, and his hands started shaking so badly he almost couldn't hold the paper. She told him about being born rich and never knowing struggle, about parents who loved her but were never there, about dating boys who loved her name and not her person, about Jonathan leaving when grief made her difficult instead of decorative, about realizing nobody had ever loved the real her. So I decided to find out, would anyone love me if I was nobody? She described the 18 months of testing, the 46 people who failed, the growing despair that maybe she'd been right all along about humanity being fundamentally selfish. Then she described day one at Miller's Diner. "Day one, you brought me coffee and toast. I didn't ask, you just did it. When I asked why, you said, because I can, and you need it. That's enough." Those 8 words changed my life. Marcus had to stop reading to wipe his eyes. Catherine's voice came through so clearly on the page, vulnerable and honest in a way she'd rarely been in person. She wrote about watching him with Tyler, about how he taught his son that everyone mattered, about the day her hands shook and he'd cut the toast without judgment, about realizing on day 89 that she was in love with him and the experiment was ruined, but she didn't care anymore. "I fell in love with you, Marcus, deeply, completely, for the first time in my life, and then I found out I was dying faster than expected. I had to choose, tell you and spend my last days watching you grieve, or leave and spare you that pain." She apologized for choosing wrong, for running instead of staying, for dying before she could say goodbye properly. "But Marcus, those weeks with you were the happiest of my life, worth more than all 38 years before. You gave me something money couldn't buy. Love, real love, the kind that sees past what you have to who you are." The letter explained the 10 million, not charity, investment in goodness. Use it for the restaurant, for Tyler's education, for building something beautiful. "But more than money, I'm giving you control of my foundation. $500 million. You decide where it goes. Because in 47 people, you're the only one who passed every test. Consistency, empathy, dignity, character." She described her journal, 500 pages documenting 18 months of searching. Day one was March 15th, 2024, when she first disguised herself as Kate Morrison. Days 188 tested 46 people across Philadelphia. All failed within hours or days. Day 89, August 29th, was when Marcus brought her coffee without asking. Day 152, December 12th, was the day before she died. Every entry after day 22, his name, over and over. How her feelings grew. How she was angry at dying because she'd finally found what she was looking for. The final section broke him completely. My last entry, written the night before I died. Day 152, tomorrow I'll be too weak to write, so this is goodbye. Marcus, wherever you are when you read this, I love you. Present tense. Death doesn't stop that. Be happy. Find someone else to love eventually. You have so much to give. Thank you for everything. For seeing me, for loving me, for proving I wasn't wrong about humanity. Forever yours, Catherine. P.S. The coffee really was terrible, but I'd drink it every morning for eternity if I could have you across the counter. Marcus folded the letter carefully and pressed it against his chest. Then he broke down completely, sobbing in a way he hadn't since he was a child, grief pouring out in waves that threatened to drown him. He cried for Catherine, for what they'd lost, for all the time they'd never have. He cried for Tyler losing someone who'd loved him. He cried for himself and the hole in his life that would never quite heal. Ray found him 20 minutes later, still crying, and just sat down and put an arm around his shoulders. Didn't try to make it better. Just sat with him in it. 2 weeks passed like wading through mud. Marcus went to work because he didn't know what else to do, cooked breakfast for people who had no idea his world had ended, went home to Tyler and tried to be the father his son needed while feeling like he was made of broken glass. The 10 million sat in his bank account untouched. Looking at it made Marcus feel sick. It was blood money, grief money, a number on a screen that represented everything he'd lost. Ray cornered him in the walk-in cooler on day 15. You gonna use that money or just let it sit there mocking you? I don't know what to do with it. She told you. I read the letter, remember? You showed me. It feels wrong, like taking money for loving her. Ray's voice got firmer than Marcus had ever heard it. It's not payment. It's a gift from someone who loved you. Honor her by using it. Build what she wanted you to build. I don't know if I can. Then figure it out. Because right now you're disrespecting her memory by letting fear win. The words hit like a slap, shocking Marcus out of the paralysis grief had created. Ray was right. Catherine had given him this chance because she believed in him. Refusing it wasn't noble. It was cowardice. That night, Marcus called Margaret. I want to set up the foundation, the way Catherine wanted. Margaret's relief carried through the phone. I'll start the paperwork. What focus areas? People who are invisible, homeless women, single parents, kids in poverty, the ones society pretends don't exist. She would love that. Will you run it? No, but I know someone who should. Ray Espinoza. He's worked 2 jobs for 15 years to support his family. He understands struggle. Ray cried when Marcus told him, big guy breaking down in the diner parking lot. Brother, I can't. I'm not qualified. You're the most qualified person I know. Catherine would agree. The Catherine Whitmore Foundation launched a month later with Ray as director of operations at a salary that let him quit his second job. They helped 20 families in the first week. Single mothers with medical bills, veterans who couldn't afford rent, teenagers aging out of foster care with nowhere to go. Ray called Marcus after the first week, voice thick with emotion. Brother, you should see these people's faces. We're changing lives. Catherine's changing lives. We're just the hands doing it. But Marcus knew he needed to do more than just fund the foundation. Catherine had wanted him to open the restaurant, to chase the dream he'd let die. For weeks, he'd made excuses about why it wasn't the right time. Finally, Ray called him out. Stop being scared. She believed in you. Believe in yourself. Marcus started looking for spaces in Fishtown the next day. Found a storefront on Frankfurt Avenue, small but perfect. 40 seats, open kitchen, good bones. The rent was $4,500 a month, which would have been impossible before. Now it was barely a rounding error. He used $200,000 from Catherine's money to renovate. Professional kitchen with equipment that actually worked. Comfortable dining room with booths upholstered in deep blue. Kate's old booth from Miller's Diner, which Marcus had bought from the owner, installed in the corner like a shrine. Photographs on the walls. Catherine in her CEO clothes looking powerful. Kate at the diner with Tyler, both laughing. Paper cranes Tyler had folded, hanging from the ceiling by invisible wire. The restaurant needed a name. Marcus stood in the empty space trying to imagine what Catherine would want. Not something stuffy or pretentious. Something that meant what she'd meant to him. Catherine's table. Tyler looked up from the homework he was doing at the counter. That's perfect, Dad, because she wanted everyone to have a seat at the table. The tagline came easily. Everyone is welcome. Marcus designed the menu around comfort food done right. Kate's toast, thick brioche with compound butter and local jam. The first morning, breakfast plate with the eggs cooked any style, crispy bacon, perfect home fries. Tyler's favorite, mac and cheese with 3 cheeses and herb crust. The conversation, braised short ribs over risotto, the dish Marcus had made for Catherine. But the centerpiece was Sunday dinners. Pay what you can, prefix menu, 3 courses, pay whatever you could afford. $50, $5, nothing. Everyone ate the same food, sat in the same room, was treated with the same dignity. Opening day came 6 months after Catherine's death. Marcus arrived at 5 in the morning, earlier than necessary, because his hands needed to be busy. Ray came at 6 to help prep. Sharon, who'd quit Miller's Diner specifically to manage Catherine's table, showed up at 7. Tyler came after school to fold napkins and arrange paper cranes on each table. By 5 o'clock, when the doors opened, a line stretched around the block. Word had spread about the pay-what-you-can model, about the diner cook who'd inherited millions and used it to feed his neighborhood. The first customer was an elderly woman who looked like she'd been living rough. She stood at the door uncertain, and Marcus walked over to meet her. Come in, please. Sit anywhere. I don't have money. It's Sunday. Pay what you can. I have $3. Marcus smiled, and it was the first genuine smile since Catherine died. Then dinner is $3. Let me bring you a menu. She sat in Kate's booth, and Marcus's chest tightened watching her touch the same vinyl Catherine had touched. He brought her the full Sunday dinner: butternut squash soup, roasted chicken with vegetables, chocolate tart with whipped cream. She looked at it like he'd given her the moon. This is too much for $3. It's exactly right. Enjoy. Throughout the evening, the dining room filled with exactly the mix Marcus had hoped for. A man in an expensive suit paying $200 for a $50 meal, the extra going to subsidize others. A single mother with two kids paying $10, Marcus bringing them extra desserts. Construction workers after a long shift. Elderly couples, teenagers, all of them together, all of them treated like they mattered. Tyler moved through the room like he'd been born to it, bringing water, clearing plates, talking to customers with the easy kindness Marcus had tried to model. Ray worked the pass, calling orders, keeping everything moving. Sharon managed the front of house with surprising gentleness, seating people with care about who'd be comfortable next to whom. Near the end of service, Margaret walked through the door. Marcus met her with a hug. You came. I wanted to see it. Catherine's legacy. Marcus showed her around, the photographs, the paper cranes, Kate's booth, the menu with dishes named after moments they'd shared. Margaret cried at all of it. She would be so proud. You built something beautiful. We built it. She gave me the foundation. No, you gave her hope. This is you paying it forward. That first week, they served 300 people. Pay what you can Sundays fed 75, with many customers who could afford to pay extra doing so to help others. By the end of the month, Catherine's table had a 6-week waiting list for regular dinner service. But Marcus didn't care about success. He cared about the look on people's faces when they realized they were welcome here, regardless of what their bank account said. He cared about kids getting full meals and homeless people being treated like human beings, and everyone understanding that at Catherine's table, dignity came with the silverware. 1 year after Catherine died, Marcus woke before his alarm and couldn't fall back asleep. December 15th. The date had been circled on his calendar for weeks. Tyler found him making coffee in the dark. We're going today, right? Yeah, buddy. Get dressed. They drove to Boston in silence, Tyler working on a paper crane in the passenger seat while winter landscapes scrolled past. The cemetery looked different under fresh snow, softer somehow, less brutal. Catherine's headstone was simple granite with words Marcus had helped choose. Catherine Elizabeth Whitmore, 1987-2025. She saw beauty in humanity. Marcus and Tyler brought gifts. Coffee from Catherine's table. Actually good coffee, not the diner swill she'd pretended to like. Toast cut into small pieces and buttered perfectly. 100 paper cranes Tyler had spent weeks folding, each one a memory. They arranged the cranes around the headstone in a circle of color against white snow. Tyler stepped back to admire his work. Do you think she can see them? I think if anyone can, it's her. Marcus knelt in the snow and started talking like Catherine could hear him. Hey, it's been a year. Feels like yesterday and feels like forever all at once. I wanted to tell you what we've been doing with your gift. He told her about the restaurant, about people sitting together regardless of what they could afford, about the foundation helping 500 families, about Tyler, who was doing well in school and still made origami for anyone who looked sad. Ray's running the foundation full-time now. His kids have what they need finally. Sharon came to work for me, and she's actually nice to people sometimes, which feels like a miracle. And me, I'm okay. Some days are harder than others, but I'm living, not just surviving, the way you wanted. His voice cracked. I miss you, though, every day. Every time someone sits in your booth or orders toast or asks me about the photos on the wall. Every time Tyler makes a crane and I remember you teaching him. Every time I taste something and wish you were there to try it. Tyler knelt beside him and put a hand on his shoulder. It's okay to be sad, Dad. Kate Mom would understand. Marcus pulled his son close. I know, buddy, I know. Tyler addressed the headstone directly. Hi, Catherine, it's Tyler. I'm 8 now. I learned 20 new origami shapes. Dad says you'd be proud. I help at the restaurant. I fold napkins and make cranes for people who need them. Dad taught me that's what you would want, for us to see people the way you saw us. He placed his best crane, perfectly folded without a single wrinkle, on top of the headstone. This is for you. I made it perfect. They stood there a long time, two people honoring someone who changed their lives by believing they deserved better than what they had. Finally, Marcus spoke one last time. I promise I'll keep doing this. Keep seeing people. Keep treating them like they matter. Keep building the world you wanted to see. Thank you for everything. For the coffee, for the love, for showing me I didn't have to stay small. I love you. Always will. The drive back to Philadelphia was quiet but not heavy. Tyler fell asleep against the window while Marcus thought about legacy and memory and how love didn't end just because someone died. It transformed, became something you carried forward and gave to others. Catherine's table was closed Mondays, but Marcus went anyway to prep for the week. He was surprised to find the door unlocked, Ray inside checking inventory. Thought I'd get a jump on things. On your day off? This place is more than a job, brother. It's a mission. They worked together in comfortable silence, two men who'd become family through shared purpose. Around 3, a family approached the window and peered in. Mother, 2 young kids. The mother's clothes were worn but clean, her face showing the particular exhaustion of someone who worked hard and still came up short. Marcus went to the door and opened it. Can I help you? I'm sorry, I know you're closed. I just wanted to see. I heard about the Sunday thing. Pay what you can. We open for dinner at 5 tomorrow. You should come. I don't know if we can afford tomorrow's Monday, full service. But I'll tell you what, come at 4. Before we open, I'll make you dinner. Just your family. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Why would you do that? Marcus thought about Kate sitting in the back booth of Miller's Diner, about how he'd brought her coffee because it was the right thing to do, about how that simple act had changed both their lives. Because everyone deserves to feel human. That means everyone deserves good food and a warm place to sit. They came at 4. Marcus sat them in Kate's booth and cooked while Tyler brought them water and crayons for the kids. He made them a full meal, butternut squash soup with sage, Caesar salad with house-made croutons, chicken parmesan with fresh mozzarella, rigatoni and marinara, roasted Brussels sprouts with balsamic, and chocolate tart with whipped cream for dessert. Food that said you matter, you're seen, you're welcome here. When they finished, the mother tried to pay. How much do we owe? Nothing. Come back next Sunday. Bring friends if you want. That's how it works here. She cried then, standing in the middle of Catherine's table with her kids tugging at her hands and gratitude making her voice shake. Thank you. You don't know what this means. But Marcus did know. He knew exactly what it meant because someone had once done the same for him, had seen him when he felt invisible, had treated him like he mattered when everyone else looked away. After they left, Marcus stood at the window watching them walk away into Philadelphia twilight. Ray came up beside him. That was good what you did. Catherine would have done the same thing. No, you would have done it before you ever met her. She just reminded you who you already were. That night, alone in the restaurant after everyone left, Marcus pulled out the journal he'd started keeping after Catherine died. Today's entry came slowly, each word chosen with care. December 15th, 1 year since Catherine died. Went to her grave, brought coffee, toast, cranes, talked to her like she could hear. Maybe she can. He paused, pen hovering over paper. The restaurant is thriving, foundation helping hundreds. Tyler's happy, Ray's doing incredible work. I'm okay, some days harder than others, but I'm living, really living, the way she wanted. He thought about the family he'd fed today, about the mother's face when she realized dinner was free, about how one act of kindness could ripple outward in ways you'd never see, but that mattered anyway. She taught me something I'd forgotten, that you don't help people because it benefits you. You help them because they're human, and humans help each other. That's what separates us from everything else. Not intelligence or technology or art. Kindness. Simple, uncomplicated kindness, given freely to whoever needs it. Marcus closed the journal and looked around the restaurant. Photographs of Catherine watching from the walls. Paper cranes catching the streetlight through windows. Kate's booth empty, but somehow still full of presence. He whispered to the silence, "I miss you every day, but I understand now what you were trying to teach me. Love isn't about time, it's about impact. We had 2 months and you changed my entire life. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything." He turned off the lights and locked up. Outside, snow had started falling again, dusting Philadelphia in white. A homeless man huddled in the doorway of the building next door. Marcus stopped. "You hungry?" The man looked up, suspicious. "What's it to you?" "I own this restaurant, Catherine's Table. Come back tomorrow at 4, before we open. I'll feed you." "Why?" Marcus thought about Kate in her worn jacket, about how everyone had looked away except him, about how that moment of seeing someone had led to everything that came after. "Because you're standing here and I have food. That's reason enough." The man stared at him like he was speaking another language. "For real?" "For real, 4 o'clock tomorrow. Don't be late." Walking to his car, Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. The grief was still there, would probably always be there in some form, but it had transformed into something he could carry while still moving forward. Catherine wasn't gone. She was in every meal he cooked, every person he fed, every moment he chose kindness over convenience. At home, Tyler was already asleep, paper cranes scattered across his bed like he'd been practicing before exhaustion won. Marcus gathered them carefully, put them in a box where they kept all the cranes Tyler made. Hundreds of them now, each one a small act of beauty in a world that needed more beauty. He thought about Catherine's question from their last real conversation. If kindness mattered, if it was worth anything in a world that seemed to reward selfishness and cruelty. The answer was yes. Kindness mattered precisely because the world was hard. It mattered because suffering was common and compassion was rare. It mattered because every person who chose to be kind made the world fractionally better, and enough fractional improvements eventually added up to something resembling hope. Catherine had tested 47 people trying to find proof that goodness existed. She'd found it in Marcus, but he knew the truth. It existed everywhere, buried under fear and hurt and the scars life left. His job now wasn't to prove goodness existed. It was to call it forth in others the way Catherine had called it forth in him. That was legacy, not money or buildings or having your name on a foundation. Legacy was the ripples you left in other people's lives, the ways you changed them that changed how they changed others. Catherine's kindness had made Marcus kinder, and Marcus's kindness would make others kinder. And eventually maybe kindness would spread far enough that people like Kate wouldn't have to pretend to be homeless to find proof that humanity was worth saving. In the dark apartment, with his son sleeping and Philadelphia quiet outside, Marcus made a promise to Catherine's memory. He would keep doing this, keep seeing people, keep treating them like they mattered, keep building the world she'd wanted to see but hadn't lived long enough to witness. It wasn't enough. Nothing would ever be enough to replace what they'd lost, but it was something. And sometimes when the grief felt overwhelming and the absence felt unbearable, something was enough to keep going. Marcus whispered into the darkness one last time. "Thank you, Catherine, for seeing me, for loving me, for showing me who I could be. I promise I'll make it matter every single day. I promise." Outside the window, snow fell on Philadelphia. Inside, Marcus closed his eyes and dreamed of coffee and toast and paper cranes, of a woman with sad eyes who taught him that people weren't rich or poor, homeless or housed, worthy or worthless. They were just people. And people deserved to be seen. That was the lesson. That was the gift. That was everything.